And I can't find a second degree when I propose this, but I don't care. I don't need a seconder. My own opinion is enough for me, and I claim the right to have it defended against any consensus, any majority, anywhere, any place, any time. And if anyone disagrees with this, can pick a number, get online, and kiss my ass.
A representation is made that the quality of legal services to be performed is greater than the quality of legal services performed by other lawyers. Down the Backstory Podcast, I'm Harry Steele, backwoods Southern lawyer. Have my partner and client, Paul Ripp. How are things in Fairhope, Mr. Ripp?
Oh, pretty good. Just put out Freaky Friday. Should be out in just a few hours, called Faux Candidates.
And Captain Rains Rutchin, how are things out in Houston?
We hold it down out here in Houston, man. It's just gearing up for the general election and the fights that we're going to have to fight for that with the local races. And dealing with that, we had our interesting little thing that happened here in Houston. Dr. Diane Troutman was our county clerk. And a month ago, she resigned because of health reasons. It turns out she is what they call a vulnerable adult, and not just because of her age, because she has an underlying health condition, and she was very concerned about the way that we do voting here in Harris County, about being infected by COVID-19. So she immediately resigned, and we just got a brand new county clerk going into an election where we just found out. I'm an election judge, so I'm a poll worker, and we just found out that we don't have near enough people to man all voting sites in Harris County for the upcoming election and for the primaries coming up, and for the special elections. And it's a real concern right now. And of course, some of the local GOP leaders are pushing against mail-in ballots, like you've seen on the national stage. But here locally, we've seen a huge surge in requests for mail-in ballots. So we're going to see how that works out. That's just an aside. That's what's going on in Houston right now.
Yeah, well, I think given the poll workers I've seen, most of them are octogenarians in our area.
Yes,
for sure.
And it's the same here. And the reason that we have a lot of poll workers bowing out is because they have concerns about COVID-19, and they don't believe that they can positively protect themselves because a lot of our polling places are very small. For instance, the ones we have here, we have 22 polling places just in my general vicinity, and maybe 3 of them are like the school size, where you could spread out in a large school auditorium. The rest of them are small rooms in libraries, community centers, things like that. And people just don't want to be in close quarters. But we have had a huge surge in mail-in ballots, and I can make a prediction now that we aren't going to find out who wins any elections in November. We're going to have to wait and find. We're going to vote in November, but we're going to find out in December who's won and who hasn't.
Wow.
Because of all the mail-in ballots and the need to certify those and everything else.
That's going to be the story all across the country, I believe.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's my prediction. We'll elect in November and find out in December.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk COVID numbers for the people that are listening and not watching.
Alabama's up.
Wide 7.5 million, 2,042,000 in the U.S. Let's see what the map says about Baldwin. I think we're still under 300. Of course, that's because we're not testing. And just what I said was going to happen, Rains, the black belt counties of Alabama that nobody cared about is ate up with COVID-19. Look at if you look at these colors on this map, it's not indicative. It's infection by population. So
yes,
you're looking at a population density to infection rate ratio, and you see Baldwin County still pretty clear. Well, we're up 43 from last time. We were just under 300, so we added 50 in Baldwin County. All right, nobody cares.
Well, we're at about what 115,000 through the U.S.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, deaths, absolutely. That is correct. And the number's going to keep climbing. It's just going to keep going.
They're
And-
predicting up to 175,000 now, and 100. Go ahead.
That's through, I believe, August. Those
Right.
numbers, that's what the predictions are for.
Right. Well, 100 and I think it was 110,000 or 115,000 was equal to Korea, Vietnam, Afghanistan, and Iraq wars.
Right, all together, yeah.
All together, we've lost that many people in 4 months, rather than what took us 4 different wars in 40 years. Well, 50 years was still in it with Korea.
It's going to take a bunch of people losing their grandma before they come to realize that they've let their guard down way too soon.
I wonder if I've got a chest of old nautical flags, and I wish they were bigger, because in the signal, in the nautical flag signal code, a large yellow flag with a black dot in the middle of it signifies "Do not come aboard, vessel under quarantine." And I'm wondering if since we've lost all these people and their combined amount from 4 damn wars, if we could get somebody to record a new cover of the old Tony Orlando song, "Tie a quarantine flag round the old oak tree." Anyway, that was. Let's just move forward.
Let's move on to some national controversy, which we try to stay out of as much as we can. I want to have a rational conversation, Range Russian, if that's possible on this issue. Last episode, I talked about Admiral Raphael Sims and the removal of his statue, and just recently, Auburn classmate of mine posted something to Facebook where an Auburn college student had written a GIS program online and identified all of the buildings on campus that were named for anyone related to the Confederacy. Now, I took a revolutionary class that blew my mind, and this guy right here, Wayne Flint, taught a 400 level class at Auburn University, and it was the history of the South since 1865. And it completely changed the way I looked at the world around me. Because it was a graduate level class, we had to read a book and go over to his house, and he and his wife, who are both ordained Baptist ministers, and you had to have tea with them and discuss the book. Just things that people don't do anymore. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So anyway, I would love for Dr. Flint to have some input on exactly what we do on Auburn University campus. He's professor emeritus of history. And look, if we name some building for some guy who was a notorious racist or something, let's take his name off. But if there was a man of his time who served in the Confederacy and then came back to Auburn and served as a teacher for 40 years, maybe they named the building after him because he taught there for 40 years and he was part of the fabric of the university, and they wanted to memorialize him. Let's have a rational discussion about it before we start tearing things off of buildings. That's all I'm trying to say.
Let me just interject real quick, because I got to say this while I'm thinking about it. And the reason it made me laugh is not because of what we're discussing. It's a professorial comparison, because I had just about the similar class at Mississippi State under Dr. John Marsley, and it was Reconstruction to Industrial. All right, and that was what his class was all about, because he was the Civil War instructor up there. And I took his Civil War class along with his Reconstruction class, which was pretty close to the same one as that. And I'm going to tell you something. If any of us had shown up to Dr. John Marsleg's house to try to have tea, he'd have pulled an 1851 Navy Colt on it and shoot us out his damn yard. He did not want anything to do with his students coming to his house. And he made that very clear. And that's why I was like, wow, we ended up with diametrically opposite professors interact.
So I want to have a rational discussion about names that should be removed from buildings, okay? So this is Churchill, Alabama Community College website. And this is the Bay Minette campus. As you scroll down, you will see a name right here. the Seymour Trammell Science Building.
What about that first one?
The Wallace Hall.
Yeah.
Okay, well, look.
All right, I didn't mean to get you
Yeah,
sidetracked.
don't get me sidetracked. Okay, so Seymour Trammell. Guess who Seymour Trammell was?
Seymour Trammell was the father of modern gynecology.
No. Different guy.
That's a different guy?
Different guy.
Oh, okay.
Different
Well,
guy.
I had that
Let
wrong.
me, here we go. So this is his obit. You guys seeing that?
Oh, that's him. Okay.
Yeah. And so you see down here, when he was Treasury Secretary, he actually had a place on the bid form for you to add 10% that's going towards the Wallace campaign.
Yeah.
Okay. So anyway, if we want to start talking about renaming buildings, let's start closer to home. And I'll assure you, nobody in this town knew who Seymour Trammell was.
Well,
Well,
you know,
I'll have to admit something, Harry. I've been a military brat until I was 21, and then was in the military 2 more years. And I'll be damned if I knew so many military bases were named after Confederate generals or soldiers. That surprised the hell out of me. I never knew that.
Well,
that's that's not a surprising sentiment, Paul. I mean, there's plenty of people. I would say an overwhelming majority of people who have served in the military do not have a deep understanding of American history, but 99% of the time they don't have a decent understanding of foreign policy. So they really didn't know what they were doing, regardless of what base they deployed from. So I would say that's pretty fair, and it's but that's not. If Harry's looking for a counterpoint, he's going to find not a scalpel, but a battle axe in what I have to say. And I'll speak to the Seymour
as I knew I would.
The Seymour Trammell building. I'm not as much concerned about that because there's still buildings in Baltimore named after Spiro Agnew. Now, if you want to talk about somebody that went down for tax evasion and whatnot at the national level, I mean, ain't nobody tearing down the Spiro Agnew statue in the Baltimore State House. Now,
My God.
what I will say is this, and this is an all-encompassing statement. When you're a political movement and a volatile political movement, you don't seek compromise kicking down the barn door. You kick down the barn door, you set things on fire, you push past the barn towards the house, and then you start understanding and maybe accepting some compromise. Right now, this political movement is pushing through the barn. They've lit everything on fire. We want everything taken away. We want Confederate flags taken away. We want monuments torn down. We want everything related to the Confederacy erased from history. We want all the bases renamed. They know that they're not going to get all that. They are marching towards a reckoning of historical fact in this country. They say, we're going to walk towards the house with torches in hand unless you meet us on some compromise. And until then, we're going to demand that all this stuff gets taken down. But if they meet some form of compromise, NASCAR, fantastic example. NASCAR's got rid of Confederate flags. That was
Marine Corps.
The Marine Corps, the entire Department of the Navy now, Paul, because
Yeah.
the Navy's on with it too.
Yeah.
Those were huge steps taken
Huge.
towards compromise. Huge steps. Can you imagine? And I mean, I hate to say this in a generality because it makes me sound just as bad as some others, but when's the last time you've been to a NASCAR race and not seen a damnable Confederate flag flying over half the goddamn crowd? It is a huge step, and that is a step towards compromise. If
Actually, I read an article about it, and the sports writer who was writing it said that he took notice at the last Daytona, and there were only 15. He counted them. There were only 15 flags at Daytona.
Well, that's Daytona. Let it go count at Talladega, and then we'll talk.
You go to Talladega and you can't see the track for the flag.
Here's the thing.
But I
They're
think
marching
it's
towards the house.
courtesy. People know that nobody wants a big fight over a flag, and everybody's going to the race to enjoy the race.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And 99% of the
you
people
said
at Daytona paid $100 for their tickets. They didn't
You
go
said
there to get into a fight. So they're not going there with a rebel flag.
People go to NASCAR to enjoy the race, not
Right.
fight about race. And
That's
that's fine because it's a step in the direction of compromise. And it slows down the march towards the house with the horse, with the torches. Now, if there are more compromises made, the movement will back off the across the board erasure of history. Let's say the White House or the Department of Defense says, you know what, we'll take a look at renaming Bragg, Hood, and AP Hill. And we'll name them for people that deserve it, because there's plenty of people out there that deserve to have bases named after them. If all of a sudden that happens, watch the movement dial back on all the rest of it.
Okay,
That's my
well,
point, is that this is a broad-reaching sword that's going out. And if you want to turn it into a scalpel, all you've got to do is meet the compromise.
okay, so let me put a pin in it. And I want to know what Paul Ripp thinks, because he talked a little bit about race the last time, and he grew up in the civil rights movement. But what Wayne Flint told our class in 1994 was that the white people called the Civil Rights Act. Called the Civil Rights Movement when those children were murdered in Birmingham with dynamite. They said no more. So I don't know. I don't know what your perspective is. I'd like to know what Paul thinks about that. I mean, you remember when it happened?
I remember when it happened, and I remember that I do remember that the most outrage came from the white community. The black community was saying that they were voiceless and were not being listened to. And if that was the case and we were to believe them, then this would have never come to light. So the only way that it did come to light and get the focus on it and be marred in history the way that it is because of the consciousness of white people at the time living in Alabama affected by it.
And if we want to keep Confederate monuments, let them be a testament to our inability to compromise and what history has taught us that leads to. And it's the same thing in this moment. Somebody in this movement is going to say, hey, man, all this burning shit down's gone too far. We got to stop that.
Well, burning down anything, that's definitely, without saying, that's going too far. I mean, definitely. No one's advocating that except those that are doing it.
And just so you know, Dr. Flint is our kind of guy. When he wrote his articles for AL.com for the bicentennial of Alabama, his first article was on bipartisan. Our only bipartisanship is corruption. And then he goes in and details that he actually went to the Illinois State University Institute for Corruption Studies, and that Alabama was #1 in corruption in 2017. Now, does that surprise anybody who's been listening to this podcast?
Shouldn't.
No, and if it does surprise them, then when we get down a little bit further, we'll tell them about Atticus and the architect.
I'm ready to, let's go right on into it. I think that's a great example.
Okay, well, those of you that are not familiar with it, you can find it on YouTube. It's Atticus and the Architect. This is about the Don Siegelman case. I think that was 0204 when Mr. Siegelman was finally indicted after numerous attempts. And the election between he and Bob Riley was thrown in the 11th hour by none other than Baldwin County. And those votes and those records of those votes have never been seen since that day. And I know that people have listened to this podcast, Harry, and I know that they've looked at you and I and Raines and said, these guys don't know what the hell they're talking about. There's no way that corruption could be as bad as it is. Well, I'm telling you folks, go get your popcorn, go on YouTube, watch Atticus and the Architect, and you will realize just how bad corruption is in Alabama and how bad it has been for a very, very long time. It's an excellent, excellent show.
Absolutely. I plan on giving it a watch this weekend.
You'll see a lot of the similarities about what's going on today. And, you know, many years ago or a couple of years ago, we were talking about rigged elections in Baldwin County, and there was people that didn't believe it. Well, this is one of the first elections that was rigged that we know of. And then there was another one, a couple of other elections in Fairhope. And then, of course, with Michelle Thomason, she eliminated her competition because they weren't Republican enough. And Sheriff Osmack was able to stay in by having Tripp Pittman just rewrite the rules. So those are fixing elections. That's what that's called. Good old Alabama.
Roll
Well,
Tide.
So let's talk a little bit about that for a minute. These contributions, Paul.
Oh, Catalyst contributions.
Yes, sir.
You know the difference between a contribution and a bribe?
No.
A
Just to cover the
contribution
people up.
is when you give money to someone that is running against someone in opposition. A bribe is when you give somebody money and they have no competitor. So when somebody's running for office and they got their hand out and they don't have a competitor running against them, ask them what the hell they need the money for.
Well, I can speak to that a little bit.
There we go.
I spent a great deal of time running down these contributions. And because of the Citizens United,
These Catalyst contributions?
well, because of, yes, all of these contributions were made by this organization. All of them are under either consulting / polling or advertising expenses. Now, I can get my head around that. I'm a person who gets paid for that sort of thing, but my organization is deemed as a business. I don't have to report political contributions because of Citizens United. Well, neither does Catalyst. So none of these are public record. The amounts are public record and who they went to are public record. The only one that I came upon that is evidentiary was for Joe Davis. And Harry and I talked about it the other day. Joe Davis took out a $3,000 loan against his campaign back a few years ago. And in March 2019, he got a $3,109 contribution from Catalyst for ad services. And that same day repaid the $3,000 loan that he had taken out. Now, I notified the commissioner about that and said, what are your thoughts on this contribution and then how it looks and the optics of it? And I haven't heard anything back. And I doubt that I will. But
I doubt you will too.
my question is, that's an awful lot of money. You're looking at the tune of about $1.9 million. And that's just on the disclosure from the Secretary of State's office. That's not any of their reported income vis-a-vis. You got to ask yourself where all that money's coming from. Well, because they're a private corporation and are completely objectified and vilified by the Citizens United legislation, you'll never know. That is a private organization that takes private donations, undisclosed, and funnels them to political candidates. This is absolutely and without a doubt a vehicle for graft. But we have no public recourse other than maybe somebody getting on the door of the Justice Department and say, hey, come have a look at this group. Harry, what do you think about that?
Well, here's what I think. I think if you are a party to a lawsuit and there is a judge sitting on your case and you want to know who funded his campaign, you ought to be able to find that out. That's what I think.
Yep.
To protect the integrity of the judicial system.
Absolutely.
Especially if you're a party. That's what I think. Of course, I'm not in charge of anything. I'm just some, whatever.
Well, that was you said it was about how much money went through Catalyst?
Almost $1.9 million.
Whoa!
Now, that's since 2014, to be fair.
Wow. Yeah. But still, that's a lot of money not to know where it's coming from, and the only thing you can do is just see where it's going. And who's first on that list there, Harry?
Tucker Dorsey.
I thought it was Michelle Thomason.
No, she's not first.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's talk about money in politics, okay?
All right.
So back in the day, I want to say it was 2012 Chief Justice race. It's when the Democrat Sue Bell Cobb ran against Roy Moore. And that was the most expensive judicial race in the history of this country.
Yeah.
Now, how in the hell do you justify spending $5.5 million on the Chief Justice seat in Alabama?
A lot of money came from out of state.
It's worth every penny. That's why it's worth every single penny.
That's why you're seeing big money being spent right now on the Catalyst candidate for the congressional seat, Mr. Lowtower, or is it Hightower? I can't remember. Anyway, he's getting a lot of money out of Washington and a lot of money from the Washington groups, and they're essentially telling Alabama how they're going to vote. And I can assure you, if we elect a Catalyst candidate to go to Washington, we will get no return, nothing, zero.
All right, so I got a new hero. Got a new hero for you, Paul.
Yeah, I was a little bit surprised to see a 4-star general step up and do that. I'll tell you, man, that really surprised me. He had to be pretty rattled to do that. It sounds to me like he was completely caught off guard, and it just didn't sit with him well until he spit it out,
Sounds like the man had a lot on his mind.
Yep.
If you're not noticing, and I'll keep it brief because I know we don't want to spend too much time on national issues, but if you have ever paid attention to how the groundwork for military coups are laid down in foreign countries, you are observing right now an almost purely political military coup. All of the Joint Chiefs and all of the heads of the departments of all the armed forces are pushing back against the White House. Now, that doesn't mean that there's going to be tanks rolling in the streets crushing the White House fence. Far from it. That'll never happen in this country. However, what you are seeing is a political and objective coup happening against the president right now. And I think it's fantastic. Moving on.
Well, I can never remember in my life ever hearing any military officer of any rank get on TV and criticize the commander-in-chief.
Well, it's against UCMJ to criticize the commander-in-chief. So
yeah.
I can't remember what it is. I think it's under Article 15 that you can get discharged for that.
As it is the rules of professional responsibility to be critical of a judge, which is why I'm going to leave this next part up to you guys. So in the Catalyst picture before you is the judge who was brought out of retirement to hear this case. If I can get this thing to work. We'll watch a little video.
On the Baldwin County beat, the woman who pressed charges against the Spanish Fort mayor claiming he slapped her in the face at work has been fired. That's according to City Magistrate Lindsay Cooper's attorney, Ed Smith, who says it's a retaliatory measure. Smith says Cooper was fired after refusing to be in charge of taking people's temperatures at the door of City Hall because she has no medical training and because he says she feared exposing herself and her family to COVID-19. Last fall, Mayor Mike McMillan was arrested and charged with harassment for allegedly slapping Cooper in the face at City Hall.
What a coincidence.
I just wanted to point out the coincidence.
Yeah. Reminds you a lot about the Paula Donardi case, doesn't it? They're both on film. Everybody that is seeing this live on film is now being asked to believe something else. What we see is not what the justice system in Baldwin County can produce. And I know there's, in fact, let me say this, Harry. I had a call today from somebody that was very upset, and I listen to everybody's criticism, whether it's pro or con. And she was upset with me because she thought that we were spending way too much time on the drama and the corruption and things like that, and not enough time in city council meetings such as Fair talking about the infrastructure, what needed to be during the hurricanes and stuff like this. And she said it was upsetting to watch, and she just wished the city could get back on track with this business. And look, I totally agree. But when I say we, the RIP report and some of the people involved, Paula Donardi and them, we've been sucked into this. We didn't ask for any way to get involved with this any more than us reporting or you representing her. But now the amount of corruption that's involved, we either do one or two things. We forget about it and put on a happy face, or we cause a little bit of drama and make you look at how damn bad it is. And if it upsets you, I apologize, but I can tell you if we take the other road, nothing at all will happen. Nothing.
That's correct. Absolutely correct.
So when we started this, the first podcast we ever did, I told you guys.
Number one,
I told you guys over and over again that there was going to be a cost. I wasn't sure what it was, but this guy right here used the internet to make his point, which is why I give him credit for us getting at least this far. So I thought what we would do is we'd play a little Jeopardy. How about that, Rains?
Why not? Why not?
All right, so let's see here. You have several choices here. Now, I'll start you off with an easy one. Abuse his position to defame a political retractor. This person and his Confederates, political allies known as Catalysts, have suspended my access to the courthouse and refused to give me a hearing on the matter.
Who is Huey Hoss Mack?
Got it, Range. You're 1 for 1, buddy. Let's see.
I'll take Catalyst candidates for 400, Alex.
Overseen and concealed numerous violations by the board he was appointed him. He also bought a lot at a considerable discount from NBU while serving the city of Bay Minette.
Who is Mayor Boone? No, shit. Wait.
While serving the city.
it's the attorney.
Lewis.
Shit. Lewis. Who is
Indeed.
Lewis? Sorry. Tip of my tongue. Too much Lone Star this week.
No kidding. So, next category.
I'll take law enforcement abuse for 800.
This member of the North Baldwin Utility Board leased his home to the North Baldwin Utility Board while serving as chairman. During the lease period, NBU employees expended taxpayer dollar and ratepayer funds to renovate said property. The lease was terminated and the lease payments refunded.
Who is Bob Willis?
No. Board Chairman Larry Taylor.
Larry Taylor. I should have said Larry Taylor. I was thinking.
It was
Larry
on the tip
Taylor.
of your tongue. Tip of your tongue.
It's hard. It's easy range to get them confused because they're all in the same bed.
Well, I mean, this kind of turns it. It uses position for personal gain. His largest client, the family trust that the two houses were purchased from, he serves as trustee. Further participated in the lease renovation scheme involving fellow board member Larry Taylor.
Bob Wills.
Robertson.
All right, let's change it up. I'll take
Jason
I'll
Patrick for 300.
I'll take nobody serves in a position of power in Baldwin County that's black for 1,000. Alex.
Baldwin County has a reputation of elected board members taking advantage of the boards that they serve on. And that is from Bay Minette to Fairhope. And it just defies logic that you could be a board member of, say, let's say Fairhope Airport, and then you could bid on a project that is your project, like an airplane hangar, from the same place, and be on the board.
I think that's amazing, but I'll take the Singing River Hospital of Jackson County Board of Directors for 2,000, Alex, because that elected board squandered the entire pension fund of the Singing River Hospital system and left over 1,800 people with zero pension 5 years ago.
So the final allegation uses position for personal gain, and for the personal gain of his family, NBE purchased 2 homes from his family's trust under the guise of economic development. He did not disclose this relationship to the Ethics Commission via the required statement of economic interest.
Mayor Bob Wills.
Ding,
Mayor
ding,
Bob
ding,
Wills.
ding.
Yeah.
That's another thing people in Baldwin County need to realize. As soon as you hear economic development, you better put your ears up. That's one of the easiest ways for them to defraud us than anything else. And I'll go as far as to say that the Economic Development Alliance of Baldwin County does nothing for us. Absolutely nothing.
Deal with these people and these people,
Politicians.
we've treated them poorly, which I think I find offensive and I take personally. Had time.
That guy's in the middle of all of it now. So,
Check your phone.
all right.
So what's next?
Well, I thought we might talk a little bit about my dismissal from the premises. You know about that, Mr. Rip? We went to a meeting about it. You remember that?
Oh yeah, I guess that's what they call that, a meeting.
Yeah. So, as part of I think it was part of the complaint. So anyway, it's buried in a bunch of paper. But I got a letter on November 20th from Tracy Rogers, the finance director, telling me that my lease had been terminated by the North Baldwin Utility Board. I know Tracy. Picked up the phone and called her. I said, "Hey, what's going on? Who made this decision?" The board did. Okay, well, I'd like a copy of the minutes. Well, they didn't do it in a meeting, and I said, "Well, you guys get your stuff together." It also says here, I said, of course I'm going to get out, but it says here that my December rent will be based on the date of surrender, will be prorated to the date of surrender, blah, 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 blah. So long story short, I vacate the premises on the 20th of December. On December 31st, Jason Padgett, the general manager for North Baldwin Utilities, goes and files a pro se lawsuit against me for rent November and December that they hadn't even made a demand for. That if I moved out on the 11th was money that wasn't, it hadn't even been due for 11 days. They didn't give me an invoice when I surrendered the keys. You know what I mean?
They didn't care. They wanted you out.
Right. But see, here's where the wrinkle comes in. You guys think, just like everybody else, that lawyers, we ride around smoking pot and drinking and there's no consequences. And if we get in trouble, it's all covered up or whatever. Hardly. The Alabama State Bar, if you have a lawsuit filed against you, they start a file. You have to copy them on every scrap of paper. They want to know why the hell you aren't paying your bills, or why you got a DUI, or it's a lot of headache and it's a lot of trouble. So when I consulted with my attorney, we talked about all that, and he said, just pay it. We'll go to the meeting. We'll ask them what the hell's going on, for one thing. So that's what this meeting is. And I'm going to just let it roll. And if at any point you guys want to comment.
Yeah, I do. Who moved into your office space in Bay Minette when they forced you out?
Yeah, I'm curious to know that too.
It was two members, two North Baldwin Utility employee spouses. One of them has a printing company, and the other spouse of the person owns a computer consulting company.
You can't make this up, man. I mean, good God Almighty! Oh,
This is January 29th. So we've been holding this back all this time. I really hope you enjoy it.
Okay, well, I think it's time, guys. I'll call them more. So, I'll do the invocation. Our Father, we thank you so much for this new day that you've made and the opportunities we have to come and serve our great city. Father, be with each of us, Father, as we make decisions for our city today, and help us do things that be glorifying to you. We ask your blessings upon the staff and all the crews that do the work every day, and keep them all safe. Be with us this day. For it's in the name of Christ we do pray. Thank you for all you do for us. Amen. Get the meeting going this morning by acknowledging we've got some guests, and would you guests like to address the board?
Yes, sir. You mind if I move around where I can speak with you?
Go ahead.
So just another example of the mayor's animus towards me. I asked if I could sit at the table, and he said no. To start off with.
Well, Harry, you are entitled to any animus that's directed against you. You have no good purpose in any of the things you're doing other than to muckrake around, and everybody knows it. It's really interesting that you take these underhanded tactics, direct them toward individuals, and then think that you're supposed to be welcomed with open arms.
It's my boardroom, Mayor.
I'm not finished.
I really don't care if you're finished or not. I was addressing the chairman.
Let me tell you something. You're a guest here. This is the utility board's meeting. You're welcome to be here. You're welcome to express yourself, but you're not going to disrupt the meeting. So, in any event, you have the floor.
Thank you.
Chairman Taylor has certainly welcomed you graciously, and I think you should accept it in that context.
May I proceed?
You may.
Thank you. I'd like to request a copy of your minutes whereby you voted to evict me. Did you vote to evict me? I'm here to ask the question first. Did this body vote to evict me?
I think the lease was just terminated, but I'm sure we'll be happy to give you the minutes.
Okay. And what meeting did it happen at?
I'll answer that. I've got the minutes of the meeting, and this is what it says. The general manager presented to the board a written notice directed to the current tenant at 15 Hand Avenue, Suites 150, 154, 157, advising the termination of lease due to multiple delinquent rental payments. Tenant was given 30 days to vacate the lease premise. A
So you
motion was-
notified them after the fact?
No. Let me finish. A motion was made by Mr. Robertson, seconded by Mr. Gaines, authorizing the general manager to proceed with notice of the tenant. After that meeting, Ms. Rogers sent you a letter.
And why did Ms. Rogers not know when I called and asked her that they did this in a meeting?
You called and asked me?
Yes, ma'am. When I got your letter, I called and I said, Tracy, I've read the, this is exactly what I said. I said, I've read the lease, and while they have absolutely every right to terminate it on 30 days notice, I'd just like a copy of the minutes. And you said they didn't do it in a meeting. And I said, well, maybe you don't understand how legislative bodies work. They have to do it in a meeting.
It's not what you said.
That's exactly what I said. I asked for a copy of the minutes.
Don't argue with him. Don't argue with him. It's pointless.
So,
we'd be happy to get you any minute you want.
I received an email from you on Monday morning. I've turned it over to our attorney, and he will be supplying you with those minutes.
Okay.
That's the best, the best way of our directive to get that information to you.
Question number 2, Mr. Chairman. Did you authorize Jason Padgett to file a pro se lawsuit on your behalf against me?
Jason?
No. So in our normal operations of doing business, if someone owes us money and they have neglected to pay us, we go through the small claims court, as we have numerous times before, to get people to owe us money. And that's what we did in this case. So the board did not authorize us. That is our day-to-day operations of business.
And you handled it just like you handle any other delinquent like
That
Mr.
is correct.
Step.
Well, the problem is we have a contractual relationship. I have a contractual relationship with this board. And if you're going to file a lawsuit against me based on that contract, you should have attached that contract as the basis of your lawsuit. You have a board attorney. Why didn't he file the lawsuit? There are any number of questions.
Who filed the lawsuit. There's no obligation to attach the contract. You were delinquent in your rent like you had been for months and months and months, so it's notice pleading, as I'm sure you understand. You're a lawyer, so you knew exactly what the claim was. You paid it, didn't you? You ultimately paid it before you had to go to court, didn't you?
I certainly did, on advice of counsel.
You advise yourself?
No, sir. Mr. Wills, you're the most vile person I've ever met in my life, and I do not wish to speak with you. I'd like to talk to the rest of the board who haven't opened their mouth yet. So, Jim, is this standard operating procedure for Jason Padgett to go file?
He's here to disrupt the meeting. I wouldn't allow it to proceed much longer, quite frankly.
Harry, I really don't have any reason to talk to you. It's daily business here. You did not pay your bill just like any other customer to this board. And if I don't pay my bill, which I do, I pay my bills, then I suffer the consequences, period.
So,
End
Jim,
of my statement.
Look to your right. That man right there owes me a pile of money. So, if we want to talk about people paying their bills, look to your right.
I pay my bills. How about you?
I sure do. So let's talk about the pattern and practice. For the first 2 years I was here, I didn't even have a lease. And Jason would come around and pick up rent payments. So when you say I was late 12 times, I can't say if I was or not.
Well,
all I knew was I had to pay my rent during the month, which was the pattern and practice.
That come knock on my door and collect my money, I know I owe it, and I send it to him.
Okay. So, Mr. Lewis, so why would Mr. Lewis not file a lawsuit?
I'm not
Why the
a
pro
lawyer.
se?
Wasting your time.
Let's get some, let's calm down here. Okay. Have you got some points you need to make, sir?
I have a few questions, yes, sir.
Okay. Let's ask the questions.
Besides your bungalow that this board leased for a year, and Mr. Mitchell, the Mitchell Family Trust bungalows that you two guys have a financial interest in, and the Bradley building, have you bought anything else under the guise of economic development? This board. That's my question. It's a simple question. Have you bought any other real property or leased any other real property under the guise of economic development?
I'm not aware of us buying any.
So that's it, just those three?
Buying.
Don't know? Okay. Well, I certainly thank you for your time, and I guess I'll be looking for Mr. Lewis to get me a copy of your minute. Thank you much.
Harry, there's not one lick of difference between Mayor Wills and the former mayor Tim Camp. And what he was doing in Fairhope is exactly what Mr. Wills is doing in Bay Minette. It's he's running it with a strong arm. Nobody is opposing him, and anybody that rides along with him gets favoritism and good land deals. And
All right, so
anybody speaks up like you, they're going to crush them, man. They don't want to hear it.
So the reason that my rent was only $556 a month for 3 suites of Class A office space is they could terminate my lease at any point upon 30 days notice, because the whole premise for buying the damn building, just like these bungalows, was for economic development. If somebody came to the mega site and bid, then we would make this office space available for them until they built them a building somewhere for office space.
Right.
So there was always that, sword hanging over you that day was coming, but that wasn't that's not what they did. And I don't know if you noticed, I showed it several times in the video. When they sent me the letter, I owed them for that month's rent. I was not delinquent in my rent.
I told you couldn't have moved out.
Timely that I pay. It was due on the 10th, and I paid it on the 20th or whatever. You understand the difference. I never got a demand letter saying, Mr. Steele, you're 8 months behind on your rent.
Why don't you, and also the bungalows, people need to understand that the bungalow purchase was supposed to be for potential customers that were coming to look at the mega site. How many times do we have customers stay in the bungalow, Harry?
None that I know of. They've been rented out, used for bunco parties, Easter at
You got a picture of that bungalow?
Yeah, I do. It's in the video, though. I don't think I threw one up for that.
I saw it in there. I wanted Raines to see it and what they were getting for each one of those things.
Yeah, the vendor's lien deed in this thing was $816,000 for those 2 houses. So that was $411,000 in 2013. And you got to understand, this transaction just completed. They paid $100,000 a year until the release was signed. I believe it was June of 2019. So this has been an ongoing thing.
And that's a wood structure.
I haven't seen any group be more led in their economic decisions by buying a pig and a poke since I did business with the Department of Defense back in the 1990s.
A pig and a poke.
Yep. I
think that infographic sums it up. The 2 employees whose spouses moved into the place. Here's everybody's on a social trip to a football game. This describes the allegations that Mr. Rip made.
And all this is going on while everybody in Bay Minette is sound asleep.
Not I. All right. So, Paul, you got anything else?
Yes, the Rip report today, Freaky Friday, be out later today if it's not being published now. It's in the hands of the geek. It talks about faux candidates. And by faux candidates, I mean in the past elections, I've had to learn the hard way in putting trust in people that I looked at that told me to my face lies about their purpose for running for office, and then not finding out until later that they were running for Catalyst the whole time, and they were the faux candidate that was supposed to keep his mouth shut, but slip in there to represent Catalyst. Well, that's what I think is going to happen in this next month. And there are 3 different spots that we're looking at right now that possibly you could see these Catalyst faux candidates come in. One is Mr. Dane Haygood, the mayor of Daphne. And the news that we're getting is that he's on the outs with Catalyst. And I guess Mr. Haygood's going to find out that Catalyst now will eat their own, because they're going to try to put.
So one more time, this is proof that Catalyst is a storefront. If
Right.
Catalyst was created by Lynn Stacy, who's no longer with us, Chris Elliott, who's now a state senator, they didn't support him in the last election, and now Haygood, who's an incumbent running for mayor, and they're going to run this other guy. I'm going.
Yeah, they're going to run the other guy, and let's make it clear that the reason that that Elliott broke off from them is that Elliott found them to be toxic, and he thought by getting a little bit of distance between them, he could disavow any relationship to them. So that's one of the reasons that Elliott backed away from Catalyst. But trust me, he's got the Catalyst tattoo on his rear end. Now the other one, the next one is besides Mr. Haygood, Mr. Burrell, who's the council president in Fairhope for the last 8 years. Absolutely, completely despicable record, everything from bid rigging down. He, again, is another Catalyst player. He wasn't sponsored by Catalyst the last time, but he certainly has played their game the entire last 4 years with Catalyst. With Mr. Boone, and Mr. Boone's son Scott's the one that runs Catalyst. So it's looking like Burrell may have a faux candidate run against him that also is Catalyst. So we're going to have to watch that. And then third, but not least, is the mayor of Fairhope. I think this is hilarious. The 3 prime people that we think we're going to run were Sherry Sullivan, the former mayor, Tim Cant, and Mr. Burrell, who we were just speaking of. Well, now I'm hearing that Sherry Sullivan's decided to stay at her job, which is very lucrative. I think an extremely smart decision on her part. And Tim Cant is finding it impossible to justify his corrupt administration, the BP thing, the Fly Creek, the Triangle. I could go on and on and on. So that leaves, nobody standing. So what we're thinking is no one has stepped up yet to run. We just can't wait till that person raises their head, and you watch and see. They'll probably be linked up with Catalyst, and it'll just be a ploy to come from the sidelines to run for Catalyst without saying they were Catalyst. So it's going to get very, very interesting here in the next couple of months. And then last but not least, we have the congressional runoff on July 14th, right in the middle of the Fairhope qualification, which is July 7th to the 21st. But Mr. Jerry Carl is in that race. And as I mentioned, Mr. Lowtower is the Catalyst candidate. And I can assure you the worst decision Baldwin County could ever make would be to send Lowtower up there to Washington, D.C. So as far as the RIP report goes, that's what's on the RIP report. And then I had a little bit on Lagniappe, but if you want to go into something in between there, Harry.
One quick second, Paul.
Yeah.
Something important, because when people do good things, we like to congratulate them on that. Did you see this?
Well.
So Carl was on Midday Mobile today and said, since this has happened, it's like he's the presumptive candidate. That people who weren't returning his phone calls and waiting to see what was going to happen, all that's changed overnight.
Well, Bradley Byrne.
So
on a high note there, Bradley.
So should I out Bradley and tell people that we're related? I mean,
no, I think Bradley deserves a slap on the back because
he sure does.
Jerry Carl's the best for the seat, and putting Lowtower in there would be a hell of a mistake, and I guess Bradley could see that too.
So Raines, I got a good one for you. So you know, Gone with the Wind's been taken off of HBO, and it's going to be put back up with some kind of disclaimer. So, but you remember Ashley Wilkes?
Ashley Wilkes, yep.
Right, and remember the Wilkes family, and they had a tradition in their family where they married cousins.
I believe, yeah.
So I'm a lot more burned than Bradley because my grandparents were third cousins. I kept trying to trace back the family tree, and I kept going, no, that's not Grandmother Burns. That's not Grandmother Hall's daddy. That's this other Burn. Anyway, I'm more burned than Bradley. Or my side of the family is.
Good grief.
Well, that made my day. I'm glad to see that. I didn't catch that. That was today?
Yeah, well, it was yesterday, and he was on Midday Mobile with Sean Sullivan today, and I listened to about 45 minutes of it in the car. And he sounded real upbeat, and you know, but people still need to get out and vote. And if you're scared of going to the polls, you still have time to get an absentee ballot. We'll throw a little link up where you can go to the Secretary of State's website or the county registrar, or the I guess the local absentee ballot manager is the circuit clerk in Baldwin County.
Right, and you know, you got no excuse in voting when you can absentee vote. And for God's sakes, the last thing, do not straight ticket vote. Look at who the candidates are.
Right.
Straight ticket voting is blind voting.
All right, Paul, give me some lagniappe.
All right, one thing I'm happy to say, is that the June 10th to June 16th edition of Lagniappe, you know, they start, one of the articles is Sunken Cities Taking Down the Confederate Statues, which we were just talking about. But the one thing I'm impressed with Lagniappe is it looks like they're bouncing back very fast. The advertising is coming back. It's full of articles. And, you know, one of the things that I read in there that's not political that I think is very interesting in Mobile, the downtown businesses are very sorry that the COVID thing hit when it did, was that Mobile has quite a music scene and some very good musicians coming through there. And you can follow them through Lagniappe as well. There's a one article in here that's board business tuition. Oh, no, wait a minute. That's not the one I was looking for. The one for, well, one is defunding police departments goes way too far. That's by Rob Holbert. I think the word defunding is a bad word. I think maybe reforming and doing some things with the police department is certainly should be looked at, such as we have our police officers now that are being called out on issues that are mental health issues. So we're asking the police officers to handle mental health issues. They shouldn't be having to make those calls, you know. And there's jurisdictional things with police departments that are overlapping, where just simple duplicity is costing each municipality a little bit more if they had done it a different way. And of course, last but not least, I absolutely do not condone the militarization of a police department. I think that is the wrong way to go, because when you militarize the police department, then they start further militarizing the crooks. So somebody has to give up first, and policing means policing. And I'm very, very much an advocate of the police department, or police departments. But at the same time, I'm extremely critical when they go off course. And when, say, the sheriff's department's investigating its own incidences and then making a report on them that the public never gets to see, that's not good policing. That's not good policing.
All right, Paul, let's talk about the Major Crimes Unit real quick.
Oh, yeah.
Does that suit you? So the Baldwin County Major Crimes Unit was a figment of the sheriff's imagination for a long time. He created it himself. He asked certain other members of local law enforcement to serve on the board, which he does not serve on, but it is staffed by the 30 most senior officers in the sheriff's investigation division. Okay. So the premise is whenever there's a crime in Baldwin County, like a murder, and there's no suspect, the Major Crimes Unit will come in and take jurisdiction of that case, because that presumably that jurisdiction wouldn't have the resources that the Major Crimes Unit would have. The problem is they're also using it in an instance like the Yates case that we were talking about, where they tore the trailer down around the man and shot him. Their Major Crimes Unit is investigating that. They're investigating themselves. In the incident with the young man with the fanny pack who ran off the road on I-10, there's all kind of video of the thing. They shot him with a long gun. I don't know how you shoot somebody in the kneecap and then two to the abdomen at 15 feet, but they said he started at 40 feet away and closed the gap to 15 before the officer fired, and then he stitched him up. Sounds to me like they want the Lagniappe has asked for that body cam footage, so they served the sheriff with a freedom of what you call a FOIA, what we call an open records request, and the sheriff didn't answer, so they filed a lawsuit, and it went before Judge Taylor, and Judge Taylor breathed life into this clay golem, and he says, your request is defective because you did not serve the proper people. The Major Crimes Unit has that information, not the sheriff. So just like that, it's all legitimized, because now there's a legal ruling saying that it exists somewhere besides letterhead and in the sheriff's brain.
How long did it take them to close the investigation on the guy that supposedly hung himself with a seatbelt?
12 hours, and they did not. The investigator who investigated that case admitted to me that he had only handled property theft cases prior to that. So there wasn't
anybody out there. Are there any FBI agents listening to us, please?
So let's go back. Let's go back to the whole saga of Harry loses his security pass. So do y'all remember?
Man, go to Lagniappe.
So when I ran into the sheriff after he revoked my security pass, when we did the Friday the 13th expose on the death of that confidential informant, I saw the sheriff the next day. And guess who the people were who went to him and said I was acting like a crazy person, erratically and aggressively?
Same people you've been talking about.
This guy. I mean, this guy, that's a bigger picture. This guy, and this guy. And why would this guy listen to this guy? Well, I don't know. They're carrying a wreath together. And he's hanging out with the DA and Jefferson, whatever, Sessions, Beauregard Sessions. So that's where those allegations came from. So if you want to go listen to the Animus You Deserve, go jump back about 20 minutes and listen to that again.
All right. The other, there's another article that this has been going on for quite some time. It's been under the radar too. It's details unclear. Gulf State Park financial summary shields contractors' profits by Gabe Times. This has literally been going on for a couple years since they leased out the
operation
Gulf State Park down there.
They have a third-party operator.
Right, and Lagniappe's been trying to get financial records related to the $140 million Gulf State Park enhancement project, and they've been, they built the hotel down there that's supposed to be 5-star, which is absolutely horrible when you drive up to it. It's a parking lot.
All right,
In
so
the back,
let me
there's
talk
no
about that.
landscaping, and the garbage cans are visible from the street.
All right, so let me speak to that. It's what we call a LEEDs building. They built it to be environmentally friendly and to blend into the natural ecosystem. So guess what the shitting landscape is, Rains? Sand.
Naturally.
It's freaking sand and like 3 pitiful little sand sea oats hanging on by their roots out there, you know.
Hey, it's
pounded by the wind coming off the road.
I'm telling you, Rains, it is truly embarrassing.
It
because
looks
what you
like
see is from
Joseph
the road.
Stalin designed this thing.
What?
I said it looks like Stalin designed this thing. Those Khrushchev talent, international, architecture.
Yeah. But anyway, on the park improvements and management agreement, they were enabled by legislation passed in 2013. And this was a first of the kind constitutional amendment approved by voters in 2016, while funds were largely provided by the Natural Damage Assessment, NRDA, and the legal settlement from BP. Here's where it gets interesting. One of the sponsors of that first of its kind legislation, enabling legislation, Senate Bill 231, was former State Senator Rusty Glover. Glover has since left the legislature to become an employee of, guess where? He's an educational specialist at the Gulf State Park.
Come on now.
It just keeps going and going and going and going. You just can't make this crap up. And everybody just puts their finger in their ears.
Paul, give me 1 second.
Well, these are a couple of high-stepping turkeys, and you know what to say about a high stepper. No step too high for a high stepper.
Even Governor Ivy knows when she sees a high stepper.
Yeah, Rusty Glover, he'd be a high stepper. All right. Then you have some other articles in here. Taking a step, the council debating removing the word race from city forms. That's by Dale Leash. That's Mobile County. Mobile County is also working on their third version.
We're going to replace it with intersectional outrage classification.
I don't know. The Mobile County is also working on their third comprehensive plan, which, by the way, Fairhope has been trying to work on and has all in place. And the city council keeps making decisions prior to the comprehensive plan being done about decisions that the comprehensive plan addresses. So, I don't know what to say. They just keep on with it. I thought Civil Disorder was written by Jason Johnson. It's some arrested following the protests, and they were kept without bond at the city's request. Well, no, I'm not certainly, advocating for them destroying property and protesting, but it does make you wonder. Here's some people out on the street protesting. They break a car windshield, they get thrown in jail without a bond, but then somebody like Mr. Pittman can come along and steal $636,000 right under our nose and not even get a slap on the wrist. But I encourage you to get Lagniappe. It's really coming back on the scene. The Nappy Awards are going on now. You can get in there and vote for your favorite nappy. And just keep it the papers at the newsstands, or you can get it online. I get it online because it's so easy and you can get it first. But it's our only news in the Baldwin County area and the Mobile area where we have investigative reporting. Most of the other reporting I would describe as fluff, just enough to fill a few pages on the line. Now, I think that Harry and I put out a lot of good stuff too, but it might be just a little too abrasive for some people, but it's factual.
Hey, Paul, I want to do a little rewind with you. You got a sec?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can.
And the mega site now is going into what? I don't even know, 8-10 years. They don't have a client.
Okay.
They've come up with this proposal
So they've given the land back to the Economic Development Alliance because the county can't own it for these companies to make infrastructure improvements and get tax breaks. So they've created anyway for
And
some.
we have not heard anything, and we have not heard anything back from the Economic Alliance through the county commission as to what is going on or where this has where it has progressed. And remember, people, that wasn't when they announced that they were going to do this infrastructure stuff. They said that they had no one interested in the project. No one had signed up for anything with it. They had no clients. So they're doing infrastructure work to help sell or get a tenant for the mega site. Infrastructure work that should have been done when they purchased it.
Correct.
Not 8 years later.
Hey, there's a real nice sign out there now, though.
Yeah, but guess what? This is what I like. Economic Development was putting out a thing saying that we were one of the first mega sites available now, that we were at the top of the list. But what they failed to mention is that most of the others already have occupants, and we're about the last mega site available. So that's why we're the first one that you would see now, because we're the last one available. I do hope something goes in up there, because I think North Baldwin deserves better than what they've been getting. I just hope
in a lot of ways.
Yeah, well, I hope that Economic Development does not have the 100% choice in who goes in there, though. I'll tell you that. There better be some scrutiny over that.
All right, Paul. I'm done, boys. You got something else? Wrap it up.
Nope. I'm just gonna let everybody know, get your battle gear ready, because we are less than a month away from qualification for Fairhope elections, all the municipal elections here in Baldwin County. And the election date, of course, is August 25th. And then we have the runoff for the congressional race on July 14th. That's Mr. Carl. So the next month to 6 weeks is going to get real, real hot, folks. And I will apologize in the front end here if it's a little bit too much drama for some people to handle. But we're going to put it out there as we see it.
It's almost too much for me to handle. And amor fati, Rains. You know what I mean.
Ya služil rodina.
I was speaking Latin. All right.
I was speaking Russian.
I noticed. I don't know any Russian, for the record, if anybody's listening. So Paul, what's up for the weekend?
I'm doing a lot of research and a lot of reading. Unfortunately, I've had about 3 more people call me involved in divorce court under Michelle Thomason. All of them distraught. All of them don't know what to do. All of them complaining about their attorneys taking their money and getting nothing done. And I don't know what it's going to take for anyone to clean up that family court. But Judge Thomason should be the first one they sweep out the door.
Yowza.
I'll add a quick agree on behalf of Harry Still, because he cannot agree to that. So.
I
ain't touching that one. All right. So Alan Jackson is in town tomorrow at Oak Hollow Farms. It's $100 for a ticket. You got to show up in your own truck, and you can tailgate. And it's two people per ticket, 2 people per vehicle, I guess.
I have no earthly idea who Alan Jackson is.
Oh, my blaspheme.
Oh, way down yonder on the Chattahoochee, you'll catch COVID in your hoochie coochie.
I'm a little bit more a Bob Marley fan.
Shocker.
That was a shocker. All right, boys. Y'all have a good weekend, and
all right.
I will see you next time. Thanks for your time.
All right. Harry, you just wear